Picture this. You're fast asleep in your bed. The house is completely dark. The street outside is just dead quiet.
Right. The ultimate safe zone.
Exactly. And then bam, you are jolted awake. It's the dead of night, and a sound has just like shattered the
Oh,
silence.
that is the worst feeling.
It really is.
Yeah.
In that split second, as your heart is just hammering against your ribs, how safe do you really feel in an empty house? I mean, we all have locks on our doors, but when the unexpected happens in the dark, those physical barriers suddenly feel incredibly fragile.
They really do. Because, the safety of our home it's one of our most fundamental psychological baselines.
Yeah.
When that boundary is breached, even by just a really mundane sound,
Uh-huh.
our primal brain basically overrides our rational mind.
You just go into pure survival mode.
Exactly. You're no longer thinking about your expensive alarm system or like the heavy wood of your front door.
Yeah.
Your neurochemistry is instantly preparing you for a predator.
And that neurological hijacking is really the foundation of our mission today. We are taking a deep dive into the modern folklore piece, The Eternal Ring of Three Past Midnight.
Such a fascinating piece of internet lore.
Oh, it's brilliant. Now, anyone familiar with the genre probably knows the basic setup, right? We've got Rohan, the ultimate skeptic. He takes a dare to spend the night in that infamous abandoned house on Maple Street.
Right? A classic trope.
Classic. We know he encounters the Pale Woman and, he doesn't make it out. But we aren't here to just retrace his steps today.
No, we really want to deconstruct the anatomy of this story.
Exactly. We're going to examine the psychological mechanics at play, like how the author actively weaponizes our reliance on technology.
Oh, that part is so good.
It is. And how it subverts our understanding of physical space, and ultimately how it hacks our ingrained social conditioning to craft this viral urban legend.
I mean, it truly functions as a masterclass in psychological escalation. What makes the source material so effective isn't even the ghost itself, really.
Right. It's not just spooky faces.
No, it is the systematic dismantling of the protagonists, and by extension, the listener's sense of control. If we look at how the narrative approaches the concept of modern defense, it becomes pretty clear that the author is making a very pointed statement about our vulnerability.
Well, let's jump right into that concept of modern defense, because when Rohan goes into this house, he brings what he considers armor.
His tech loadout.
Yeah, his tech loadout. He has his smartphone, a high-definition camera, and this heavy-duty flashlight. He approaches a supernatural rumor as a purely, logistical problem that he can just document and debunk.
He thinks he's completely in control.
Exactly. And I look at that loadout, and to me, it's like someone walking into a torrential downpour holding a tiny cocktail umbrella.
That is a highly accurate way to frame it, actually.
Right. He assumes his technology grants him authority over his environment, completely unaware of what he's stepping into.
The cocktail umbrella analogy is perfect because it provides the psychological illusion of shelter while offering, absolutely zero actual protection against the elements.
At all.
We use technology as this empirical shield. We have this collective societal belief that if a camera can capture something, that thing is quantifiable.
And if it's quantifiable, we can manage it.
Precisely. The author gives Rohan these tools specifically to strip them away, to demonstrate that empiricism is completely useless when the laws of physics are suspended.
And that suspension kicks off at exactly 3:03 a.m. with the first doorbell ring.
Such a mundane sound to start the terror.
But so effective. And this leads to, honestly, my absolute favorite thematic sequence in the whole deep dive. The digital betrayal.
Oh, the camera footage.
Yes, we all know the moment. Rohan checks the camera footage after answering the empty door, right? He watches the video on his phone, expecting to catch some neighborhood pranksters.
But
Instead, he sees the pale woman with long black hair standing directly behind him while he was looking outside. It's so creepy. I am curious, though. How do you interpret the author's choice to reveal the threat through a screen rather than in real time? I mean, does technology actually make modern horror more difficult to write since we can just, document everything?
I would actually argue the exact opposite.
Really? How so?
Well, technology in this context amplifies the vulnerability. Think about the physical act of looking at a smartphone.
Okay, yeah, you're kind of hunched over.
Right. Your field of vision narrows to this tiny, glowing rectangle in your hands. You become entirely blind to your peripheral environment.
Oh, wow. You literally give up your spatial awareness.
Exactly. So by having the camera capture the entity standing right over his shoulder, the story subverts the technology's intended purpose. The camera didn't prevent the intrusion at all.
It just documented it.
Yeah, it simply documented his profound helplessness.
It shifts his entire role in the environment, doesn't it? Like, he walked in acting as the observer. He's setting up his little cameras to monitor the house.
But the footage proves he was never the observer.
Right. He was always the subject being observed. The house is essentially mocking his reliance on that screen. It's forcing him to realize that while he was staring out into the dark looking for a threat, the threat was, like, inches away from his neck.
And this flips the spatial dynamic entirely. Once Rohan realizes the entity is already inside, that heavy front door he locked, it becomes totally meaningless.
The locks don't matter if the call is coming from inside the house, so to speak.
Exactly. The architecture of the house transforms from a shelter into a cage. And this is where the narrative actively begins to break down human logic.
Starting with the evidence left behind on the front porch.
Right. The muddy footprint.
The single muddy footprint. I love this detail. When Rohan opens the door for the second time, there isn't a trail of mud. There is just one isolated print positioned as if someone had been standing there on one foot.
Which is just so deeply unsettling.
I have to admit, when I first read this detail, my brain snagged on it completely. It is so much more effective than a pair of wet footprints. But, like, from a psychological standpoint, why is that?
It really comes down to human pattern recognition and evolutionary psychology.
Okay, break that down for me.
Well, our brains are basically these highly sophisticated prediction engines. We inherently understand the mechanics of bipedal locomotion.
Right, walking on two legs, left, right, left, right.
Exactly. A human walks, leaving a left print, then a right, forming a continuous path. So when we see an isolated footprint with literally no tracks leading to or away from it, our brain just cannot compute the missing data.
Oh, it's like a computer encountering a corrupted file.
That's a great way to put it.
Your brain doesn't just register fear, it actively crashes trying to resolve the physical impossibility of it. You start asking yourself all these frantic questions like, is it hovering? Did it drop from the sky?
Yes. It forces you to imagine an entity that simply does not adhere to human anatomy or gravity.
Because a prankster leaves a trail. Whatever left that single mark didn't arrive by walking, and it certainly didn't leave by running.
Right, and that anomaly signals to our primal threat detection systems that we are dealing with an apex predator, one that operates completely outside natural laws.
Which is terrifying.
And the story takes that external spatial impossibility and immediately drags it inside the house.
Wow.
Rohan starts frantically searching the rooms,
Right.
and then the doorbell rings again.
But this time, it's not coming from the front porch.
No, the chime originates from inside the architecture itself, which leads him to that cramped little room beneath the stairs.
The mirror scene, oh man. So doorbells are fundamentally designed to be the boundary between the outside world and your inside sanctuary.
Exactly.
So when the chime comes from the hall closet, that boundary dissolves completely. He finds this old mirror and his reflection just vanishes.
Replaced by the pale woman.
Yeah, replaced by the pale woman who simply points a finger toward the front door. Now, I actually struggled with this specific interaction a bit.
Oh, really? How come?
Well, usually mirrors in horror are used for that classic jump scare, right? To show a monster creeping up behind the protagonist. Why does the author have the Gunst entirely replace him and act as a kind of, like, silent traffic cop?
That's a really good question. It's because the story is systematically shrinking Rohan's world and stripping away his agency.
Shrinking his world.
Yeah, think about the progression of the spatial threat. First, the threat was outside. Then on the camera, it was directly behind him.
Right.
Now, it has literally erased his physical reflection and usurped his space in the mirror.
Oh, wow. I didn't think of it like that.
The entity pointing to the front door is not a warning to flee. It functions as a command.
She's telling him where to go.
Exactly. The house is now dictating his physical orientation. He is basically a rat in a maze being funneled toward the final experiment.
She is forcing his attention back to the threshold, the very place he initially sought to keep locked.
Yeah.
And that, of course, triggers the climax on the front porch.
Where it all hits the fan.
Where it all hits the fan, the door opens by itself, letting in this freezing wind, and we get the visual of the little girl with the teddy bear asking for her mother.
And then the twist.
Literally. Her head twists entirely backward, her eyes go black, and she smiles. Now, I actually want to push back on this specific imagery just a little bit.
Okay, let's hear it.
Up until this point, the story relies on this deep, creeping psychological dread. You know, the missing reflection, the single footprint.
Already subtle.
Right. Then suddenly we get a backward twisting head and black eyes. It felt almost like a cheap cinematic jump scare to me when I read it. Why abandon the subtle psychological terror for such overt physical distortion?
I can completely understand why it might feel jarring, but if you look at the mechanics of global folklore, bodily distortion is actually a visceral necessity at the climax of an encounter.
A necessity.
Yeah, psychological dread creates the tension, but physical corruption triggers our deepest biological alarm bells.
Wait, so you're saying it's not just for shock value, it serves an actual evolutionary purpose?
Precisely. It taps into the uncanny valley and our innate disease avoidance.
Oh, right, because she looks sick or wrong.
Exactly. When we see a human form that is violently broken like a neck twisted 180 degrees, yet the entity is still animate and smiling, it signals a profound biological threat.
It's just unnatural.
It tells our primitive brain that this creature is not just dead, but deeply infectious to the natural order. The narrative needs that visual shock to transition Rohan from a state of investigation to a state of absolute paralyzing panic.
It breaks his mind.
It breaks his mind just in time for the lights to go out.
Oh, man. And that transition into absolute darkness is where the sensory overload becomes genuinely unbearable.
It's so intense.
The visual horror vanishes, right, and is replaced entirely by auditory chaos. Dozens of footsteps surround him in the pitch black. But the detail that fascinated me most was the specific mix of voices he hears.
The laughing and crying.
Yeah, he hears children laughing, women crying, and men screaming, all overlapping. Most ghost stories just rely on screams of agony. Why mix laughter into a horror environment?
Because it creates severe cognitive dissonance. Pure screaming is terrifying, sure, but it is contextually appropriate for a threat environment.
Right, if you're in danger, you scream. It makes sense.
Exactly. It represents a single, understandable emotional state, pain or fear. By blending laughter into the cacophony, the author introduces an emotion that fundamentally does not belong there.
Oh, it's the corruption of sanctuary again. Laughter belongs in a safe environment. Hearing joyous laughter in the dark while you are surrounded by unseen threats, that tells your brain that whatever is hunting you is completely comfortable.
Yes, it suggests absolute madness. It communicates to Rohan, and by extension you, the listener, that the entities trapped in this house are entirely untethered from human logic, empathy, or context.
You can't negotiate with that.
No, you can't. The psychological soup of joy, sorrow, and terror creates an incomprehensible wall of noise. You cannot reason with a threat that laughs at its own agony.
That is deeply chilling, and amidst that dissonance, the trap is finally revealed through that awful whisper in his ear.
You should never answer the doorbell.
You should never answer the doorbell. He wasn't hunted down. He invited the threat inside. Which brings us to his final desperate act.
The flashlight.
Yes. Shaking in the dark, Rohan clicks on his heavy-duty flashlight, the last remnant of his cocktail umbrella. But the light doesn't banish the dark. It only illuminates his inescapable fate.
He is surrounded.
He is surrounded by the ghosts, all pointing to the front door where the pale woman now stands.
And the visual climax here relies on a really powerful motif. The erasure of identity. When she lifts her hair, the story describes a swirling black void of endless darkness where her face should be.
The void face is such a striking image. It's the ultimate loss of self. She tells him, "Now it's your turn to ring," and Rohan just screams.
And that's it for him.
That's it. The next morning, the police find his smartphone and camera, but he is completely gone. His empiricism, his skepticism, none of it saved him. He has been entirely consumed by the house.
He is assimilated into the narrative. And this assimilation is the crucial mechanism that allows the author to pivot from a simple ghost story into the birth of a brand new urban legend.
The folklore mutates.
Exactly. Rohan's disappearance acts as the catalyst for the mutation.
Right, because the story doesn't just end with a missing persons report. It concludes by establishing a new piece of neighborhood lore. The text states that now, every single night at exactly 3:03 a.m., the doorbell rings at that abandoned house.
Like clockwork.
And the rule is clear. If someone is foolish enough to open the door, they don't see an empty street. They see a young man holding a flashlight, smiling in the dark. Rohan.
The skeptic has become the boogeyman.
It's so good.
If we analyze the structure of this ending, it is an incredibly sophisticated narrative trick. The author doesn't just resolve the protagonist's arc, they actively weaponize it against the reader.
The transfer of the curse. I love how this operates. By ending with the warning, if he asks to come inside, never say yes, the author ensures that the horror leaps off the page and directly into your real life.
It follows you home.
It absolutely does. The story guarantees that the next time your actual doorbell rings in the middle of the night, this specific legend is going to echo in your mind. You aren't just wondering if it's a delivery driver or a lost neighbor anymore. You are specifically picturing a young man with a flashlight, smiling in the pitch black.
It perfectly demonstrates the exact framework required to create a viral piece of folklore. Enduring urban legends require two key elements: a baseline of plausibility rooted in everyday behavior, and a simple, actionable rule.
Like, don't flash your headlights at a car driving with its lights off.
Exactly. Or don't say a name 3 times into a dark mirror. The rule here is incredibly mundane. Don't answer the door at 3:03 a.m.
It hacks our behavior. It takes something we do without thinking answering a door and attaches a lethal consequence to it. Rohan thought his technology made him immune to the trap. He brought cameras and lights to exert control.
But the house didn't care about his logic.
Or his tools. It simply relied on the fact that when a bell rings, a human being will eventually open the door.
Which leaves us with a really critical sociological concept to ponder. Urban legends of this nature endure and thrive because they prey on our deeply ingrained social conditioning.
Our politeness, basically.
Yes, we are trained from early childhood to respond when called, to answer when a bell is rung. It feels rude, almost physically uncomfortable, to ignore someone seeking entry at the threshold. Our polite society is built on these small social contracts.
So the true horror isn't the void face or the backwards head. It's the realization that our own manners might get us killed.
Consider your own instincts. If you heard a sharp, sudden knock right now in the dead of night while you were completely alone, could you truly resist the deeply conditioned human urge to just crack the door open and check?
Oh, that's such a chilling thought.
The narrative strips away our technological armor to expose the fatal flaw underneath, our incurable curiosity.
It really is a terrifying realization. I mean, all the heavy-duty locks, the security cameras, the smart home systems, they are entirely useless if you are the one who willingly turns the deadbolt from the inside. So the next time you're jolted awake in the dark and a sudden sound demands your attention, maybe just stay in bed.